Debt is normal. Debt is just part of how modern economies function. But what if that's not true? What if global debt isn't an accident, but a carefully engineered mechanism? A mechanism designed not to be repaid, but to keep generating wealth for a select few. A machine so silent, so deeply embedded into the global financial system that entire nations have unknowingly become fuel for it. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the system that turns global debt into one of the most profitable extraction tools in human history, and why no matter how much wealth the world creates, the debt only grows larger. This isn't the story you heard in school. Because the real story begins much earlier. It takes a sharp turn no one was told to expect. To understand how global debt became a perpetual growth engine, we need to go back to a time when money wasn't something governments could simply create. A time when currencies were anchored to something physical, gold. But even in those early days, there were men and institutions who saw a different future. A future where money wouldn't be tied to metal, but to promises. And promises, unlike gold, can be multiplied endlessly. Behind this shift were central bankers, finance ministers, and economists whose ideas quietly reshaped the world. Some names you know, like Keynes, Nixon, Volcker. Others never reached the spotlight, yet their decisions echo through every dollar, euro, and yen created today. What they built wasn't just a monetary system. It was a mechanism, one that turned national borrowing into a repeating profit cycle, one that ensured the debt would never shrink, only expand. And the twist, the mechanism wasn't just tolerated. But that celebration wouldn't last. It starts in the early 20th century. When central banking became the new backbone of national economies, the Federal Reserve in the U.S. opened its doors in 1914, just before World War I. Around the world, similar institutions emerged with one stated purpose. But behind closed doors, central bankers were discovering something far more powerful. They realized governments, especially during war, needed money, and they needed it fast. But debt was infinite. Banks could then use those bonds as assets to create more money. It was a self-reinforcing loop. Debt created more money, which created more debt, which created more profit. The gold anchor snaps by the mid-20th century. Debt had grown so large that even the gold standard couldn't support it. So in 1971, President Richard Nixon made a decision that permanently changed the world. He disconnected the US dollar from gold. Overnight, the biggest currency on earth became backed by nothing but confidence. And once the dollar was free, other nations followed. Suddenly, the supply of money and global debt had no physical limits. Governments discovered they could borrow endlessly. Banks found they could lend endlessly. And central banks realized they could manipulate interest rates to keep the entire system running. Debt wasn't a side effect anymore. The explosion of credit from the 1980s onward. Something unprecedented happened. The world pivoted from producing wealth, leveraging wealth. Corporations leveraged their assets. Consumers leveraged their future income. Global debt in 1985. $1 trillion global debt today. Over $300 trillion. That's more than 3 times the world's GDP. This should have triggered panic. Instead, financial institutions learned how to turn rising debt into profit. More government bonds gives more interest. More financial instruments gives more trading revenue. It adapted and grew stronger. Because every problem created more debt, and every new layer of debt created more profit for the system's architects. Nations become dependent countries, began structuring budgets around borrowing rather than earning. Every election cycle promised more spending, more stimulus, more growth. But underneath the political theater, one reality persisted. The largest line item in many national budgets is now interest on debt. Entire nations are working not to build infrastructure or fund services, but to pay the financial elite who hold their bonds. Debt has become a form of tribute, a modern tax paid upward. Citizens are pulled into the loop. Average people now live inside the same mechanism. Credit cards, auto loans, a world with rising prices and stagnant wages forces people to rely on borrowing, interest payments, extract wealth the same way national debt does. Debt isn't just a tool anymore. Governments have tried to fix the debt spiral. They've pushed austerity, raised taxes, cut spending, and restructured bonds. Cutting spending slows the economy. Reducing tax revenue leading to more borrowing. Raising taxes triggers political backlash, making reforms impossible. Austerity creates recessions, which require stimulus, funded by debt. Printing money devalues currency, but doesn't erase debt obligations. Debt restructuring only delays the problem, never eliminating it. The system isn't designed to be fixed. Look at today's economies and the pattern is unmistakable. Global debt increases every single year, even in economic booms. Every crisis from 2008 to 2020 resulted in unprecedented money creation. Central banks now buy government bonds with money they create from nothing. Over 60% of new wealth created since 2000 has gone to the top 1%. Meanwhile, median wages barely moved, because the debt machine funnels wealth upward. And now we're seeing the next evolution. Central bank digital currencies, algorithmic interest rate control, and the mechanism is becoming more efficient and more invisible. It's engineered to expand indefinitely, transferring wealth upward through interest, fees, and asset inflation. The shift away from gold created a world where money is unlimited but stability is not. This unlocked infinite borrowing and infinite dependence. Crises are no longer interruptions, they're fuel. Every shock leads to more borrowing, more central bank intervention, and more power consolidated at the top. We are living inside a financial machine that grows stronger every time it appears to fail. The debt keeps rising, the inequality keeps widening, and the mechanism keeps turning quietly, relentlessly, efficiently. The next chapter hasn't been written yet. But if history repeats, and it always does, the world is heading toward a point where the debt can no longer be hidden behind inflation, bailouts, and political promises. When that moment arrives, the silent mechanism will reveal itself. And the question won't be how it happened,